Before I left on my first trip to India, I was so worried about scams. So I put together this course to tell you everything you need to know to get you started. But most importantly, this is meant to empower you and to give you information, but not to make you paranoid. There's no worse feeling than traveling around and feeling like the world is against you. That is not the case. That is not the point that we are making here. But being prepared is essential. So the first thing you need to know is that a lot of scams definitely target people when they're at their most vulnerable, which makes a lot of sense. When are you at your most vulnerable as a traveler? When you've just arrived. So a lot of scams take place when you've just arrived at a new city or even in the country in general, or when you're in transit. So a lot of the scams that we're going to talk about are preying on that vulnerability and a bit of disorientation. So when you feel disoriented, when you feel confused, pause for a minute. Again, don't freak out, but maybe don't make any big purchases. They might not be entirely legit. So we're about to get started. I hope you are ready to begin this journey with me as we take a little dive into the world of scams in India. Let's do this. Taxis, rickshaws. This is a big one. So when I was in India, I actually found so many times people ran into scams with getting to and from places when taking these methods of transportation. Now here's the thing, when I looked online, I actually found lots of people who were scammed when the taxi drivers told them they didn't know how to get to their hostel or hotel when it wasn't true. For me, I had the complete opposite experience. I had taxis and rickshaw drivers who told me they always knew exactly where we were going. It was never true. Okay, so here's the main thing you need to know to avoid getting scammed when dealing with taxis and rickshaw drivers. The main thing is you need to be prepared in advance, meaning know where you're going, have an offline map, have where you're going pinned on that map so that no matter where you are, you can see where your destination is. A part of that is then also knowing how far is this taxi supposed to take? Like how long is the ride supposed to take? Is this a 5-minute ride or is it a 30-minute ride? Obviously that's going to affect the price and the negotiations that are likely about to happen. So with me, like I said, the taxi drivers never knew I was going. When I would ask, hey, do you know where this hostel is? Do you know where this hotel is? They always said, oh yeah, definitely. They never knew. They never knew. And I found out when we'd pull over, ask somebody. And by the way, I was always safe. I got where I was going. But this can be a lot smoother and easier if you can actually help direct people, which by the way I was doing. I'm in a foreign country directing someone in their home city of where I'm going because I have it starred on my offline map. So that's what you want to do. Now, about the price, because this is sometimes where they try to get us, right? The main thing is, if you've booked a hotel or a hostel and you're trying to get where you're going, make sure you reach out to that hotel or hostel in advance and ask them what the fair price is. It's common. These people work in hospitality. They know they're dealing with travelers all the time. So they're the perfect people to help make sure you are fully prepared and don't get scammed. Sounds simple, right? It's definitely not always that simple. So sometimes if you're arriving early in the morning or late at night, these drivers know that you're vulnerable. We talked about vulnerability. They know that you're vulnerable, so sometimes the negotiations can be tough. In that situation, sometimes you're going to wind up paying a little bit extra. But if you can relax, don't rush the process, just work with these cab drivers. Make sure they know you know what the right price should be. So even if you arrive at 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, try to get that price knowing in advance how far it is. Because by the way, I've had cab drivers where they're like, oh no, it's so far. It's 5 minutes away. By the way, I've also had the reverse where I'm like, dude, it's 5 minutes away. And then I was wrong. Okay, so sometimes do your research properly. Don't be like me, who at that point, I didn't really know. I thought I knew, but I was wrong. Okay, so you want to have the information in advance so that when you're negotiating, you're prepared and everything is great. So, take your rickshaws and taxis with confidence. Also, when you're in India, remember, major cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, even Kochi in Kerala, they have Uber. So you can make it really easy on yourself by taking one of those modes of transportation as long as you have Wi-Fi or data. But if you don't have data, just make sure you've downloaded an offline map in advance and you're prepared, okay? When you're traveling, you definitely want to be a little bit wary of anything that is free. This is true for India. It's also true for other countries that you visit. So sometimes when you're walking around in India, sometimes you'll see people who want to give you a little blessing, put the little tika on your head. People want to do all sorts of things that's free, give you tours around. I had people who just wanted to give me advice. Oh, you should stand over here, do this, do that. Be a little bit skeptical when something is free. Now, not to be paranoid, again, but a lot of times those things aren't free. They give you the blessing and then they're going to expect the payment. Now, as long as you don't mind giving a payment, fine. Take the little tika, not a big deal, but it's something you want to be aware of in advance so that you're not caught off guard. Now, if someone does give you the blessing and you want to go ahead and give it, less than $1 is fine. A few rupees is okay. 10 rupees, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a big donation that you give in that situation. Also beware in cities like Varanasi. So it's a beautiful holy city, but it is very common when you're there for people to tell you, okay, you can't stand here and watch the funeral processions. Let me take you to a different area. Come with me, follow me here. You don't need to do that. It's probably fine just where you are. Pay attention to where other people are and you'll probably be okay. You don't have to follow someone to where they're instructing you. Sometimes they'll look at it as they're giving you kind of a private tour, giving you personalized guidance, and for that, they will expect a fee. So, just be a little bit wary. When someone's trying to give you something for free or offering something, by the way, this also happens. I had a sadhu, which is one of like the holy men, try to give me a free gift. Now, again, it was free. He definitely tried to get me. I didn't fall for it. I've been traveling through India for months by the time I came across this guy. And he was very disappointed about that fact. He thought he was going to get some cash out of me. I was happy. He was bummed. That's how you know it's a good interaction in that case. So, be careful if it's free. Otherwise, just go have a good time. But don't be afraid to talk to people as well. I met a lot of amazing people during my travels. Met a lot of really kind Indian people, Indian men as well. So again, you don't want to be paranoid, but you just want to be aware and make sure you're on the same page with people and not feel too kind of gullible, So, that's it. Bargaining is basically a way of life in India. When you're there, if you're at a fruit market or you want to buy souvenirs for your friends and family to take home, you're going to want to bargain if you want a deal. Now, if you don't mind getting maybe not the best deal, you don't have to bargain. And by the way, I did meet lots of locals who don't really enjoy that part of bargaining. Sometimes they just pay the prices. So you can do that if you want. But if you want to feel good and you want to have a little fun and see if you can bargain like a local, here's what you do. Now, I traveled around India for a while before I got pretty comfortable with bargaining. The main thing you want to remember is that sometimes you need to be able to walk away. Don't seem like you like the stuff too much. If you've ever bought a car, I bought a car. It was a very traumatic experience. I was there by myself. But what I realize now is that it was good prep for buying a banana in India. Very similar items. So, here's what you need to do. I recruited a friend of mine here. He's actually American, you guys. But there's so much happening. He's American, but he's Punjabi, and we're in Thailand. So there's a lot of different things happening, but we're going to play out what it's like bargaining. So if I wanted to buy these beans from him, maybe this is about how it would go. I'm going to try to play it cool, so let's see. How much?
200.
200. Can you do 100?
Oh, it's organic.
It's organic, but 100?
No, I lose money.
There's always a reason. By the way, always start with half off. Don't even, because they've probably doubled it for you anyway. So just go half right away.
175, okay?
Okay. 150 and we're done now. 150 and we'll take it.
No.
Okay.
I'm losing money. No, I don't want to.
All right. Well. This is when I pretend to walk away, and I hope that he doesn't let me.
Fine, 150.
And that's a win. Really, we're having fun here, but these are some key elements. Definitely you want to offer half, be a little bit willing to walk away. Now, what I didn't mention, which I should have mentioned, in advance, once you know that you want these beans, so we're in a big market, I would walk around, ask other people just to get a sense, because he started at 200, somebody else might start at 150. Wherever they start you can probably go down, but you don't want to just have one price as a frame of reference. So check out a few different places, get a sense of because you'll be shocked. Sometimes there's a big difference in the starting prices of different items, even the exact same thing. So
yeah, this is really only 20 rupees.
You guys, let me tell you about bargaining in India. So one time I bought a scarf. It was for my mom. I was so proud of myself. Thought I had gotten I knew I overpaid. I made the mistake of asking one of my Indian friends. It wasn't him, it was another girl. Big mistake. I had paid more than 5 times the price. Clearly I didn't ask in advance and I didn't do enough research. So don't let that be you. Ask around. It might be 20 rupees. They still might tell you 200 from the start. So if you want to bargain like a local, know a little bit in advance and negotiate down. Also, by the way, one of my other friends, here's a secret tip. What she does is she tells people I can't take that price because my mom will be really mad at me. Now, family is important in India. So you start throwing in your parents, you throw in some disappointment, that guilt can work. That wouldn't work in the US. No one cares. Your mom is going to be disappointed? So what? But in India, this could get you some headway. And remember, you don't have to be mean about your bargaining. Some people get so intense and it becomes angry and a huge thing. You don't have to be that way to get a decent price. Just know, shop around, and definitely negotiate down. Be willing to walk away, and you'll be good to go. When you are traveling in India or really anywhere, a good rule of thumb is to assume everything is fake. So now usually I'm telling you, not assume the worst, you don't want to be down and whatever, but when you are shopping, it's definitely a good idea to buy things just because you like the way they look, the way they feel, but you probably want to assume that what you're buying might not be authentic. If it's Ray-Ban sunglasses, you guys, those are yellow sunglasses. That's what those are. Okay, you don't want to get confused. If you're feeling a really pretty scarf and it's silk, is it? Silk can feel a lot like some other synthetic materials. So when you're shopping, definitely get stuff you like. Prices are amazing when you travel to India. You can get a lot of really affordable things, but definitely be a little bit skeptical about the quality. I talk to a lot of different shop makers. By the way, sometimes I don't know why people tell me the truth. I think I just have the space that sometimes they feel let me open up for a moment. And I'm please do. So I was talking to some different people who own shops, and they told me how, they sell things that aren't really cashmere as cashmere sometimes, or sell materials. The reason that they did it, by the way, they said that everyone does it, so if they don't, they won't sell their goods. This was also really common in Nepal when I was traveling around there. And I even talked to some people, they would sell items from China, maybe say it's from India. So listen, like I said, buy stuff that you like, but just don't get just don't buy something because you think it's some brand name. If you see Louis Vuitton somewhere in Delhi, unless it's an actual Louis Vuitton store, it's probably not Louis Vuitton, okay? If you're not 100% sure that it's silk, if you're not an expert in the field, just buy it because you like it. So you don't want to get scammed in that way by thinking that you've bought something that you haven't bought, but it doesn't mean you can't shop and enjoy and love all of your purchases. just want to be mindful of that when you spend your money. So, happy shopping. Before my first trip to India, begging was actually one of my primary fears. You know, even being from the US, where there are a lot of homeless people, I felt like the begging would be different, and maybe the level of poverty would be a lot more severe in India. So I really was nervous about the begging, and I wasn't sure how I was going to be able to handle it. Once I was there, I was actually surprised by my ability to cope. So I want to share that with you so that when you go there, you know what to expect. First thing off the bat is that the begging was not as intense as I expected it to be. I just kind of thought I'd be overrun with beggars, or people would kind of see that like I was a foreigner and would kind of rush me, and that really wasn't the experience that I had at all. Really, the main places I experienced begging were in main touristy areas like in Rishikesh and things like that. But in general, there wasn't as much as I expected. But you will see people who maybe have one leg or, you know, are kind of crippled in some way. You may see children begging as well. Now, what I decided to do was to absolutely not give money to any children who are begging, mainly because unless you know these child's parents, that child could be being held against his will, could be kidnapped. You just don't know what's going on with that child unless you know what's going on with that child. So my rule of thumb is just not to give money to children who are begging. Now, whether or not you even consider begging is kind of like a scam. It's kind of up to you and what you want to do about the money. So, if you feel good giving money to beggars on the street, totally fine. Beware though, technically, begging is illegal in India. Now, I've never heard of any tourists running into any problems because they were caught giving money to a beggar. But begging is common. Another common way begging happens in India is through, you'll see a woman carrying a baby. She'll say she wants money for milk. The way this scam goes down is that they will take you to a store where milk is really expensive. It'll be like usually a powdered form of milk. They buy it, you buy it for them, and then they return it and get the money. This also happens with some men that are dressed like holy men. They'll say they want chapati or some bread. They'll take you to a store, you buy them wheat, which they will return for the money. Just something to be aware of. Usually these aren't huge sums of money that you would lose. And at the end of the day, I guess it's going to a person who really isn't rich, you know, and doesn't have a lot of money. So it's not a super scam that, you know, you can feel really bad about and beat yourself up about. But you definitely want to be aware because this may or may not be something that you want to support. This may or may not be a career path that you want to support. Again, use your discretion, but it's also good to be aware and be prepared. The most important thing to remember is your mindset and how you're looking at things and processing. So remember, when it comes to scams, it's impossible for me to tell you all the different ways that someone might come at you with a scam. People are thinking of new things every day. So just remember this. You do want to stay positive. You don't want to go into it with an attitude that everyone's trying to scam you, looking for scams and things like that. That is not helpful. But you do want to be alert. If something feels off, pay attention to that. And remember, you are empowered as a traveler. You're totally 100% able to say no if something doesn't feel right, if something seems a little bit strange, if you're uncomfortable, or if you just don't want something. So often when I was a new traveler, I just didn't feel comfortable telling people no. You know, someone wants to take me on a ride, then I would probably say no. But someone's selling me something's happening that I'm not really comfortable with. At first, it was really difficult for me to just say no and have space and boundaries for myself. So remember, a big part of not being scammed is being empowered, being able to say no when it's a no, not just going with the flow. Sometimes going with the flow is an amazing thing to do, but definitely not always. So if you feel uncomfortable, take that into account. You know, you can say no, you can leave a situation, you have control, and you have the ability to dictate what happens. And remember, intuition, instincts, these things can sometimes be underrated, but they're really valuable. You know, if you just get a bad feeling and there's not even a logical reason for that feeling, that's okay. You can trust that feeling and just say, you know what, I'm uncomfortable. I don't want to go to that shop, even though I plan to. By the way, one time I was in Myanmar, a cab driver, I already paid him for the day. I felt really uncomfortable, really weird, strange energy. I had him take me back. It was supposed to be like hours worth of a trip. Absolutely not. I felt uncomfortable. I felt like he had some hidden agendas, so I left the situation. You are empowered to do that as well. This is your trip. You want to have a great time, but remember, have fun. Most people are not out to scam you. Most of the people that I met in India and in other countries really wanted me to see their country, to enjoy it, and have an amazing experience. So I'm sure that's what you will experience and find as well. There is so much good stuff out there. So although this course is about scammed, it's also about not being scammed and having fun. So go out, have fun, and I hope you love it. Lots of travelers experience rickshaw scams. It happened to me on multiple occasions, actually in India and in Thailand. It's really pretty common. So here's the thing to remember. Sometimes when you're negotiating the price for a rickshaw, people will offer you to take you to a store in exchange for a discount. Now, I've had two different ways that this usually plays out. Sometimes they tell me that if they take me to this one store, they get a gas card. So it's kind of playing on, they get like a coupon for gas. So it's kind of playing on some some feelings of sort of guilt, like if you just go by the store, then they get gas, for their rickshaw for the day. So that seems nice, right? You want to help someone out. Who wouldn't want to help someone out? But listen, there's always a catch. Another way this has played out for me is that it's during the price negotiation where they're charging me a price that's too high to get where I want to go, but then they offer me a lower price if I'll agree to go to this store. Here's how it works. You go to the store. Now, by the way, I'm a solo traveler, so I was traveling alone. Well, actually, on more than one occasion, I was taken to the store. So I was taken to the store, and then I'm alone in this store. So, of course, they're laying on the pressure. Now, two things about this. If you do have shopping to do, they do tend to take you to a store that's a little bit on the nicer side of things, and they do get a commission, of course. That's why they're taking you there. They might get a commission that's money. They might get a gas card, some kind of a coupon, so they get incentivized. Now, if you have souvenirs to buy anyway, and you feel like you want to go to the store, no harm. You can negotiate the price inside that store once you get there, but be prepared. The rickshaw drivers will tell you, listen, it's okay. You don't have to buy anything. It doesn't matter. No big deal. That's what they say to get you to go there, knowing that once you're there, the guys are definitely going to lay on the pressure and definitely try to get you to buy stuff. Now, I'm very proud to be able to report to you that on my 3 different occasions of being taken to stores, I did not buy anything. But it was really an awkward situation. And one time, only once though, the rickshaw driver got angry with me for not buying anything. And that was actually in Thailand, not in India. In India, the drivers really didn't seem to care that I didn't buy anything. I told them in advance, you can take me there, but I'm not going to buy anything. I'm sure they were hoping it wasn't true, but it was true. I was true to my word. Gotta respect that, right? So you can say no to this offer. When they offer to take you to the store, you can say no, not something that you have to do. Another thing that rickshaw drivers will sometimes do, and this happened to me actually also on multiple occasions, which is after they have taken me to my destination, they try to charge me more money than we have agreed upon. Now, the reasons varied, but it was usually that they got lost and the ride took longer. So it's like, oh, this was a really long ride. It took a while. Not my fault you didn't know where my hotel was and you told me you did. Okay, so what to do in that scenario? Let's say you've negotiated a fee for 100 rupees. Now they're telling you it's really 150 because it took so long and they weren't aware. You are absolutely not obligated. If you told them the actual location where you are going and they took some wrong turns or something and it took a long time to get there, you don't have to pay that price. Now, what I did in those situations, what I learned to do over time, I used to just pay the extra money, right? I'd feel so guilty. I just paid and then that was it. What I started doing later was saying, listen, this is not what we agreed on. We agreed on the 100 rupees. I would give them the 100 rupees and simply leave. I don't know why at first it was really hard for me to leave from a situation, but as long as you know that your integrity is intact, you are not cheating someone, you're not breaking your word. Now, if you told them an unclear location, I think you should have some accountability with that and maybe pay an extra fee. But if you told them, hey, I'm going to this hostel, this place, and somehow there's some kind of mix-up, they take a wrong turn, which happened to me, not on you. Pay the fee that you agreed to. It is okay to pay the appropriate fee that you agreed to and then walk away. So, that's your major overview for rickshaw scams. Now, by the way, rickshaw drivers can get a little bit tricky. There could be other things that come up, but just remember, once you know where you're going, you know the fair prices, getting scammed in a rickshaw is not so likely to happen. Most of the rickshaw drivers that I met were honest in the sense that they always took me where I was going. Even if they didn't know how to get there, they always took me there eventually. And in general, with a few just exceptions, the price that we agreed upon was the price that I was charged. But there were some times when that didn't happen. So that's it for your rickshaws. And by the way, rickshaws are so much fun. So if you do go to India, I just love riding around the rickshaw sometimes. Sometimes they really speed, which I kind of like, because it's kind of like a little adventure. So go off and enjoy. When it comes to where you're gonna stay, you don't wanna get scammed. So here's the thing that you need to know. When you're booking a hostel or hotel or anything like that, if you're booking in advance, make sure you're booking from a trusted website. There are plenty to choose from. You can go to my website, I'll have a list there for you, places that you know you can rely on. But you can also book kind of last minute things. Sometimes I like just showing up in a city, not knowing where I'm gonna stay. That can be fun. By the way, that's fun if you're arriving at maybe like noon. If you're arriving somewhere at midnight or at 8 p.m., you might want to book that in advance. So to make sure that you're not scammed when booking your accommodation, it's all about preparation here and time. So if you have the time and you want to feel a little bit prepared, book it in advance on a website that you know you can trust, or when you get to a city. Now listen, rickshaw drivers will sometimes offer to take you to a hostel or a hotel. That doesn't mean it's a scam or a bad idea. These are people who know the city and can give you recommendations. So if you feel comfortable with the price, it is a situation where they may be getting a kickback on that, but these are also people who do know the city. So if you meet a rickshaw driver who speaks good English, seems reliable, definitely you can talk and get information. But by the way, if you have already booked your accommodation in advance and a rickshaw driver is telling you that your accommodation has burned down, has been flooded, no longer exists, okay, this is probably not some reliable information. Also, you should know that sometimes the rickshaw drivers will work in conjunction with each other. So even if another rickshaw driver comes over and then tells you that actually your hostel did indeed burn down the day before, you can really disregard that information. Go ahead and get yourself a different rickshaw driver at this point, just to be safe. So use a reliable website, use your best judgment, but it's okay to also be flexible and choose your accommodation spur of the moment. Don't feel like it's something you have to lock down if you're an experienced traveler, if you feel comfortable with that sort of question mark, if you're comfortable with that level of adventure and mystery in your travel. It's fun, embrace it, you know? But if you want a little bit of security, if you want to be sure you don't have any scams with your accommodation, the easiest thing is to book it in advance. When you're traveling, it can be really tough to know who you can trust. It was tough for me when I was first setting out. You know, you meet so many people, and at first, I didn't want to trust anybody, okay? But here's the thing. This comes down to trusting your judgment and paying attention to what's going on around you. So if you're in a situation with a lot of people and someone tells you that maybe the bus station behind you is closed, but you see a lot of locals going into that bus station, I wouldn't trust that information. So this comes down to intuition and observation. So knowing who to trust. I actually had a lot of trouble with this in Siem Reap, Cambodia. When I was there, I actually found it tough to know who was telling me the truth and who wasn't. I thought a lot of people were telling me the truth. It was actually not accurate. When I was in India, though, you know, I met a lot of people who were very genuine, not so many people who surprised me with being untrustworthy. But it's definitely tricky to know sometimes, and the way you can tell sometimes is by when people modulate their behavior, when something feels a little bit abnormal. So the one time this really caught me off guard was when I was actually buying something at a shop. And the shop owner, I felt like he was being unnecessarily mean to me, and I couldn't quite put my finger on why it was. But I went ahead and bought something from him anyway. Now, by the way, I bought a power bank from him. And it was really embarrassing because even when I think about it, I'm kind of ashamed. I was actually in Udaipur in Rajasthan, and I really needed a power bank. And I, went to his shop, and like I said, I felt like he was being kind of mean, but like just kind of awkward and standoffish. But I don't know, somehow I just wanted this power bank, and I didn't really shop around, red flag, for myself. And later I found out that he charged me like way more than double, and it was like terrible quality. I'm still dealing with this power bank, and it's too heavy, and live and learn. Okay, so when people are treating you in a way that seems a little bit off, it's a way to maybe check and see like maybe there's something awry going on here. But knowing who to trust takes a little bit of time, and I wouldn't just rely on the things that people tell you. Another example is people told me don't take food from strangers, don't trust all of these different situations. And I took food from lots of different strangers. I met people on trains who gave me food at multiple different occasions, and it was always fine. But at the same time, I looked at the situation. So if a family is eating food and they're giving the same food to their child, that food is safe, right? I don't think these parents are planning to harvest their child's kidneys and they're giving them something that's going to put them to sleep, right? You can pretty much guarantee that that food that they're feeding to their child and then offering you some is safe. So you don't want to just listen to rules and people say, okay, don't do this, don't do that, and kind of have these fear-based things that you're carrying around with you. The important thing when avoiding scams is really to kind of look at a holistic approach. What is actually going on here? Is this a situation where you can feel comfortable? So, knowing who to trust, you can figure this out. And always remember, if you do get scammed by one or two people, if someone overcharges you, in Udaipur, and you pay way too much for a power bank that's way too heavy, and then you're carrying it around, even when you're in Thailand, it's okay. You can survive that, not a big deal. You can still have an amazing trip and have an amazing time and just move on with it. So, you've got this. When you're traveling, it's easy to want to over-prepare for things, especially if you're going to a country like India. India can seem scary if it's your first time. You hear lots of stories. What are you going to do? So I think courses like this, reading blogs, it's great, but you don't want to let it take you too far so that you're starting to get paranoid and worried about your trip. India is an amazing country to visit. I'm looking forward to going back. I've been there a few times already. I've always solo traveled through India and had an amazing time. But when you read things, it's just easy to go a little bit scared and to lean a little bit fear-based. So I just want to make sure that as you set off on this trip and as you get ready to go, you know that it's okay, and that you can handle the situations that are coming towards you and that the situations that you may encounter. India is really an amazing country to visit. I hope that when you go, you will love it as much as I did, and you will find the information that you see on the internet as a helpful resource to help get you ready for what you're going to experience there, but to not feel like you need to over-prepare for everything, because the one thing I can guarantee you is that India is probably going to surprise you in some way. Some of the curries might take you by surprise, or the traffic when you finally see it, and all of the sounds and the honks and the crowds. These are the fun things that you get to experience when you visit a new country for the first time, or when you go to a new city for the first time. So embrace the fact that you're not going to know everything in advance. You're not going to know exactly how things are going to play out, but you know that you are there, and you know that you can trust yourself as you travel, and that's really the most important thing here. It's about trusting yourself, knowing that you can adapt, go with the flow, and handle whatever comes at you and still be okay. Good, bad, indifferent. You can do it. It's okay. Go forth and travel.